First contact fiasco. Senior Ambassador Zilith of the Galactic Alliance struggled to maintain his composure as the human delegation approached. His four eyes blinked in rapid succession, a sign of extreme stress among the Ixarian species. The thin membrane covering his pale blue skin glistened with perspiration as the environmental sensors in the diplomatic chamber confirmed what he already feared. The humans were bringing something dangerous with them. High Counselor, I must insist we reconsider this meeting, Xylith whispered to his superior. The Earth delegation appears to have brought biological contaminants. High Counselor Vex Nor's crystalline form shimmered with annoyance. The humans were explicitly instructed about our biosecurity protocols. What exactly are you detecting? Before Xylith could respond, the massive doors slid open. 3 humans entered, 2 males and 1 female, all wearing the standard blue and silver uniforms of the Earth Space Command. But what followed them made every alien representative in the chamber recoil or initiate defensive postures. A sleek, 4-legged creature with midnight black fur prowled behind the female officer. Its amber eyes surveyed the room with predatory intensity, and when it opened its mouth to yawn, it revealed rows of sharp, gleaming teeth. Announcing the delegation from Earth, the chamber's eye intoned, seemingly oblivious to the mounting tension. Captain Marcus Chen, Cultural Attaché Dr. James Rodriguez, and lead xenobiologist Dr. Eliza Thornton. Dr. Thornton smiled warmly and took a step forward. The creature matched her movement, staying close to her side. And this, she added with apparent pride, is Shadow, my companion. The Alliance security drones immediately activated, hovering menacingly with weapons trained on the beast. Captain Chen raised his hands in a placating gesture, while Dr. Thornton looked genuinely surprised by the reaction. Please deactivate your security measures, she said calmly. Shadow is completely tame and poses no threat to anyone in this chamber. Tame. Counselor Vex Nor's voice resonated with disbelief. Our scans indicate this is an apex predator from your planet. It possesses lethal biological weapons in the form of claws and teeth, and its muscle density suggests it could overpower most sentient species represented here. Dr. Thornton's expression softened into something the aliens would later learn was amusement. Shadow is a black panther, yes, but she's been with me since she was a cub. She's more likely to ask for belly rubs than to attack anyone. As if understanding she was being discussed, the panther sat down and began to groom one massive paw with surprising delicacy. Xylith couldn't process what he was witnessing. The human female stood casually next to a creature that, according to their database, could tear through reinforced plating. And she spoke of belly rubs. This is precisely why we requested this summit. Xylith found his voice at last. Humans, your species continues to demonstrate a disturbing disregard for safety protocols and basic common sense. Captain Chen stepped forward, his diplomatic training evident in his measured tone. Ambassador Xylith, we understand your concerns, but you invited us here to discuss cultural exchange. This is our culture. On Earth, humans have lived alongside various species for our entire history. What you see as dangerous, we see as companions. The Rezik delegate, a small avian creature named Pix, fluttered nervously. You keep apex predators as companions. For what tactical purpose? Purpose. Dr. Thornton seemed genuinely confused. Shadow is my friend. I raised her when her mother was killed by poachers. There's no tactical advantage. The concept of forming emotional bonds with deadly predators was so alien that several translation systems faltered, causing a cascade of confused chatter throughout the chamber. High Counselor Vex Nor raised a crystalline appendage, silencing the room. Dr. Thornton, while we appreciate this cultural demonstration, I must insist the creature be removed before we proceed with formal discussions. For the first time, the human woman's friendly demeanor faltered. Shadow stays with me. She's registered as my emotional support animal under Earth law. Emotional support. Xylith's translator struggled with the concept. You rely on a lethal predator for emotional regulation. Among other things, Dr. Thornton replied, her hand resting protectively on the panther's head. Shadow helps with my anxiety in new environments, provides companionship during long space journeys, and has been instrumental in my xenobiological research. The diplomatic chamber erupted into chaos again. Representatives from 17 different species began speaking simultaneously, their translators creating a cacophony of overlapping concerns and questions. Captain Chin cleared his throat loudly. Perhaps a compromise is in order. Dr. Thornton, could Shadow wait in our quarters until this initial meeting concludes? Before the xenobiologist could respond, a small rodent-like creature darted across the chamber floor, likely an escaped specimen from the Alliance's biological research wing. What happened next would forever change galactic perceptions of humanity. The panther's eyes locked onto the fleeing creature, muscles tensing visibly under its sleek fur. Every alien representative braced for the inevitable bloodshed. But Dr. Thornton simply clicked her tongue twice and said firmly, "Shadow, no. Friends." To the astonishment of all present, the predator immediately relaxed, ignoring the potential prey entirely. How? The question came from Merrick's, the insectoid representative, who had remained silent until now. How did you prevent its hunting instinct from activating? Dr. Thornton smiled again. Training, trust, and a bond that goes deeper than instinct. Shadow knows I disapprove of her hunting certain creatures. She chooses to respect my wishes because our relationship matters more to her than the momentary satisfaction of a chase. The concept was so revolutionary that the Alliance's AI immediately flagged it for deep cultural analysis. A predator species choosing to override its base instincts out of emotional attachment. High Counselor Vex Nor's crystalline form shifted to a deeper blue, a sign of intense thought among his kind. Dr. Thornton, I would like to propose a modification to our agenda. I believe the Alliance would benefit greatly from understanding this relationship dynamic. Perhaps you could demonstrate these training techniques. For the first time in Galactic Alliance history, a preliminary diplomatic meeting was transformed into an impromptu seminar on interspecies bonding. Dr. Thornton spent the next hour showing how Shadow responded to various commands, how the panther communicated her needs and emotions, and most shockingly to the alien representatives, how the predator showed genuine affection toward her human companion. When Shadow rolled onto her back, exposing her vulnerable underbelly for Dr. Thornton to rub, several Alliance members had to recalibrate their understanding of predator-prey dynamics. This defies all evolutionary logic, Xylith muttered to Vex Nor. Predators do not willingly display vulnerability, even to members of their own species. And yet, the High Counselor replied thoughtfully, we are witnessing precisely that. The implications are concerning. The meeting concluded with a tentative agreement to continue cultural exchanges, but as the human delegation departed, the panther still padding faithfully beside Dr. Thornton. The Alliance representatives convened an emergency session. We have drastically underestimated the humans. Vex Nor addressed the chamber gravely. Their homeworld is classified as a death world. Extreme temperature variations, hostile fauna, unpredictable weather patterns, and high gravity. We assumed these conditions produced a species hardened by constant struggle against their environment. Is that not accurate? Pix chirped nervously. It is incomplete, Vex Nor continued. Humans didn't merely survive their hostile world by conquering it. They formed alliances with its most dangerous inhabitants. This suggests a level of interspecies diplomacy we hadn't considered possible. Xylith felt his skin membrane grow cold. High Counselor, are you suggesting that humans might attempt to form similar bonds with predator species throughout the galaxy? I am suggesting, Vex Nor's crystalline form darkened ominously, that we may be witnessing the emergence of the most dangerous potential in the known universe, a species that converts natural predators into allies. The chamber fell silent as the implications settled over the assembled representatives. Humanity had just unwittingly revealed its most formidable evolutionary advantage, the ability to befriend the unbefriendable. 3 days later, the diplomatic mission suffered its first major setback. An incident in the Alliance's zoological research facility triggered station-wide security alerts. Dr. Thornton had been granted access to observe specimens collected from across the galaxy. What should have been a routine scientific exchange turned into a diplomatic nightmare when she was discovered inside the containment area for a Vortian spine devil, one of the most aggressive and lethal creatures in known space. Security footage showed Dr. Thornton calmly sitting on the floor of the enclosure while the massive, spine-covered predator circled her curiously. More shocking still, Shadow the Panther was also present, seemingly unperturbed by the larger predator. By the time security forces arrived, Dr. Thornton was gently running her hand along the spine devil's flank, carefully avoiding its venomous spines, while speaking to it in soft tones. The creature, known for dismembering anything that entered its territory, appeared to be purring. "This is an outrageous breach of protocol." Zilith's voice reached a pitch that strained the translation systems as he confronted Captain Chen. "Your xenobiologist infiltrated a maximum security containment area and interfered with a Class 5 predator species." Captain Chen, to his credit, maintained his diplomatic composure. "Ambassador, I assure you Dr. Thornton meant no harm." She saw that the spine devil was exhibiting signs of captivity stress and sought to alleviate its suffering. By entering its enclosure, it has killed 7 of our most experienced handlers. "With all due respect, Ambassador," Dr. Thornton interjected as she joined them, still wearing her research attire. "Your handlers approached him as a threat to be controlled. I approached him as a being worthy of dignity and respect. The spine devil, whom I named Bristle, by the way, was primarily reacting to fear and isolation." Zilith's 4 eyes blinked in perfect synchronization, a sign of complete bewilderment among his species. "You named the Vortian spine devil." "Names are important," Dr. Thornton said with unwavering conviction. "They establish individual identity and form the foundation of relationship. Bristle isn't just a specimen of his species. He's a unique individual with preferences and personality." The security chief, a massive reptilian Drek, snorted derisively. "The beast has a documented kill count of 23 sentient beings across 3 star systems." Dr. Thornton's expression hardened because he was captured, transported against his will, and placed in environments that triggered his defensive instincts. "Have any of you attempted to understand his needs or communicate on his terms?" The silence that followed was answer enough. Captain Chen cleared his throat. "Perhaps we could turn this incident into an opportunity. Dr. Thornton has clearly demonstrated an ability to connect with this creature in ways your handlers cannot. With proper authorization and safety protocols, maybe she could assist with its care." What followed was an unprecedented revision to the diplomatic agenda. The Alliance, despite significant internal opposition, agreed to let Dr. Thornton work with their zoological division. The decision was less about scientific cooperation and more about containing what many Alliance members now viewed as a potential threat: humanity's apparent ability to form alliances with apex predators from any world. As the first official week of diplomatic exchange came to a close, High Counselor Vex Noor convened a classified session with the Alliance's Strategic Committee. "I believe we are witnessing the emergence of a species that could fundamentally destabilize the power dynamics of our galaxy," the High Counselor stated bluntly. "Humans do not simply tame dangerous creatures. They form emotional bonds with them. If this ability extends beyond Earth species, they could potentially turn any world's apex predators into allies." Zilith completed the thought, his membrane paling. "We need to contain this threat immediately." The Drek security chief rumbled in agreement. "We should classify all interaction techniques with predator species as restricted knowledge and limit human access to dangerous fauna." Only Merix, the insectoid observer, offered a different perspective. "Or perhaps we could learn from them. A species that can form peaceful bonds with predators might help us solve conflicts we've deemed unsolvable." The debate continued late into the night cycle, but one thing was certain: Humanity's casual relationship with dangerous creatures had just become the Alliance's most pressing concern. What the humans viewed as friendship, the galaxy increasingly saw as the most disruptive evolutionary advantage in known space. And on the observation deck of the human quarters, blissfully unaware of the political storm brewing around her, Dr. Eliza Thornton sat peacefully watching the stars, with a black panther curled contentedly in her lap and a recently tamed Vortian spine devil snoozing at her feet. The galaxy would never be the same. The Predator Paradox. Absolutely fascinating, muttered Dr. Nexferry, the Alliance's leading xenobiologist, as he reviewed the footage for the 12th time. The recording showed Dr. Eliza Thornton sitting cross-legged on the floor of what had once been the most secure containment cell in the research station. Around her lounged three creatures that, according to all established galactic knowledge, should have been tearing each other, and her, to pieces. Shadow, her Earth Panther, was grooming herself lazily. The Vortian spine devil, now responding to the name Bristle, was curled in a massive spiny ball, occasionally stretching out one limb for Dr. Thornton to scratch. Most shocking of all was the recent addition, a juvenile Carcadian razorhound that had previously injured 8 handlers and killed 2. The razorhound, which Dr. Thornton had named Pip, was playfully chasing a small object she had tossed across the enclosure, a behavior previously unrecorded in the species. How? Nexferry turned to his assistant. How is she doing this? We've spent decades studying these species, developing containment protocols, specialized handling equipment, and she just walks in and befriends them. His assistant, a young Sharian named Mila, shook her head. The humans call it the bond. According to Dr. Thornton's notes, it's based on mutual respect, trust, and something she calls love. Though our translators struggle with that concept. Nexferry snorted. Our translators struggle because it's irrational. These are apex predators evolved over millions of years to kill efficiently. They don't form bonds with potential prey species. And yet, Mila gestured toward the screen where the razorhound was now resting its head on Dr. Thornton's lap. Empirical evidence suggests otherwise. The conversation was interrupted by a station-wide alert. The two scientists exchanged worried glances. Level 1 alerts were rare and usually catastrophic. All senior staff report to Emergency Briefing Room 12. The AI announced calmly. This is not a drill. 20 minutes later, Nexferry found himself seated at a conference table with the station's highest-ranking officials. The human delegation was noticeably absent. High Counselor Vex Nor's crystalline form pulsed with anxiety as he addressed the gathered representatives. We have received disturbing intelligence from the Outer Rim. The Draxian Collective has apparently been monitoring our interactions with the humans. They have drawn conclusions. A holographic display activated in the center of the table, showing intercepted Draxian communications. Nexferry's scientific detachment faltered as he processed the implications. They believe the humans are developing biological weapons. Ambassador Zillith's voice was strained. Worse, Vex Nor corrected. They believe humans already possess the ability to weaponize any predator species they encounter. They view this as an existential threat to their military dominance. The Draxians were a militaristic species known for their aggressive expansion and biological warfare. If they believe humans represented a competing form of biological weaponry. The collective has dispatched a battle fleet to the human colony on Proxima Centauri b. Vex Nor continued gravely. Their stated intention is to eliminate the colony before humans can spread their predator bonding techniques further. The room erupted in panicked discussion until Security Chief Drecker slammed his scaled fist on the table. The Draxians have misunderstood. The humans aren't weaponizing these creatures. If anything, they're doing the opposite. We know that, Xylith said, but the Draxians operate on paranoia and preemptive strikes. They won't wait for clarification. Nexferry found himself speaking up. We need to inform the human delegation immediately. Their colony has approximately 20,000 civilians with minimal defensive capabilities. Already done. Vex Noor replied. Captain Chen has requested emergency transport to Proxima Centauri. Dr. Thornton is complicating matters. As if on cue, the conference room doors slid open to reveal Dr. Thornton, still in her research coveralls. Her expression was one the aliens had not seen before, a cold determination that made several representatives shift uncomfortably. "I'm going with the emergency response team," she announced without preamble, "and I'm bringing my companions." Zillith blinked rapidly. "Your companions? You mean the Predators? That's precisely what triggered this crisis." "No," Dr. Thornton corrected sharply. "What triggered this crisis was a fundamental misunderstanding of interspecies relationships. I intend to correct that misunderstanding by bringing apex predators to a potential combat zone." Drecker rumbled incredulously. Dr. Thornton's eyes narrowed. "Shadow and Bristle aren't weapons. They're mediators." The silence that followed was profound enough that Nexferry could hear the soft hum of the station's life support systems. Mediators. The concept was so alien that for a moment, he wondered if the translation had failed. "Explain," Vex Noor finally requested. "The Draxians use biological agents themselves, correct? Specifically, engineered hunting creatures for infiltration and assassination." Drecker nodded slowly. "They're void stalkers. Nasty things, almost impossible to detect until they strike. Then they understand the language of predators better than the language of diplomats." Dr. Thornton said simply, "I need to speak to them in terms they comprehend." What followed was the most unusual tactical briefing in Alliance history. Against considerable opposition, Dr. Thornton was granted permission to accompany the emergency response fleet, along with Shadow, Bristle, and 4 other rehabilitated predators from the research facility. Captain Chen, watching his xenobiologist prepare specialized transport containers for the creatures, finally voiced the question everyone had been thinking. "Eliza, what exactly are you planning?" Dr. Thornton looked up from adjusting Bristle's environmental controls. "I'm going to show the Draxians that forming bonds with apex predators isn't about creating weapons. It's about creating understanding." The captain's expression suggested he found this explanation less than reassuring. 3 days later, the Alliance Emergency Response Fleet dropped out of FTL on the outskirts of the Proxima Centauri system. The Draxian battle fleet, 12 heavily armed destroyers and 1 command carrier, had already established orbital positions around Proxima Centauri b. The human colony below had activated its minimal defenses, but everyone knew they wouldn't withstand a determined Draxian assault for more than a few hours. On the bridge of the Alliance flagship, Ambassador Zillith prepared for emergency communications with the Draxian commander. Captain Chen stood at his side, while Dr. Thornton waited silently behind them, Shadow a constant presence at her side. The view screen activated to reveal Warlord Krez, his scaled face set in the characteristic snarl of Draxian military leaders. "Alliance vessels," he growled, "this matter does not concern you. The humans represent a biological weapons threat that must be neutralized." Ambassador Zillith began the formal diplomatic response, but Captain Chen stepped forward, interrupting the carefully prepared statement. "Warlord Krez, I am Captain Marcus Chen of Earth. I understand your concerns, but you fundamentally misunderstood our relationship with other species." The Draxian's eyes narrowed. "Our intelligence is thorough, human. We have observed your Dr. Thornton subverting natural predators to her control. This biological dominance technique cannot be allowed to spread." "It's not control," Captain Chen insisted. "It's cooperation. A semantic distinction that changes nothing," Krez dismissed. "Whether you call them weapons or companions, the result is the same. Humans with dangerous predators at their command." Dr. Thornton moved forward then, Shadow matching her movements perfectly. "Warlord Krez," she said calmly, "I request permission to come aboard your vessel to demonstrate the true nature of our interspecies relationships." The Draxian's facial ridges rose in surprise, the equivalent of a human's widened eyes. "You wish to surrender yourself." "I wish to educate you," Dr. Thornton corrected. and I wish to bring my companions. After tense negotiations, an unprecedented arrangement was made. Dr. Thornton would transport to the Draxian command carrier with Shadow and Bristle. Captain Chen and Ambassador Zillith would accompany her, along with a small security detachment from the Alliance. As they prepared for transport, Captain Chen pulled Dr. Thornton aside. "This is extremely risky, Eliza. The Draxians are notorious for their treachery, and you're bringing creatures they already fear." Dr. Thornton's hand rested on Shadow's head. "Sometimes understanding requires proximity, Captain. You can't appreciate a relationship from a distance." When they materialized in the Draxian shuttle bay, they were met by a full security team in battle armor, weapons trained on the animals. Bristle, sensing the tension, raised his spines defensively, but a soft word from Dr. Thornton caused the massive creature to settle. Warlord Krez approached, his own personal guards flanking him. "I agreed to this meeting out of curiosity, human. Convince me quickly that your companions are not the biological weapons our intelligence suggests." Dr. Thornton nodded. "May I make a request first? I believe you employ void stalkers on this vessel. Would you be willing to bring one to this demonstration?" The Draxian delegates exchanged alarmed glances. The void stalkers were their most closely guarded biological weapons, genetically engineered ambush predators that could phase partially into dimensional pockets, becoming nearly invisible until the moment they struck. "You wish to see our most classified asset." Krez's tone suggested he found the request somewhere between amusing and insulting. "I wish to demonstrate the difference between a weapon and a companion," Dr. Thornton replied evenly. Perhaps out of sheer curiosity, or perhaps believing it would strengthen his position, Warlord Krez agreed. 30 minutes later, a specialized containment unit was brought into the shuttle bay. Inside, barely visible even when one knew what to look for, was the shimmering outline of a void stalker, a creature resembling an obsidian-skinned panther with 6 limbs and crystalline claws that could slice through starship hull plating. Its handler, encased in protective armor and controlling it with a neural whip, kept the creature subdued, as Krez explained with evident pride. "The perfect infiltrator and assassin. It can phase through most barriers, remain virtually undetectable, and terminate targets with absolute precision." Dr. Thornton studied the creature with obvious interest, but also unmistakable disapproval. "You control it through pain and fear," she observed, noting the neural whip. "Of course," Krez replied dismissively. "It is a weapon. One does not befriend a disruptor rifle." "And that," Dr. Thornton said quietly, "is the fundamental difference in our perspectives." She turned to address the assembled Draxian officers. "You view these magnificent creatures as tools to be controlled. We view them as beings to be respected and understood." To demonstrate, she asked permission to approach the Void Stalker. After considerable debate and safety preparations, she was allowed within viewing distance of the containment field. What happened next astonished everyone present. Instead of showing fear, Dr. Thornton sat calmly on the deck plating and instructed Shadow to do the same. Then, in clear view of the Draxians, she began speaking softly to the Void Stalker. The creature, initially aggressive and constantly shifting in and out of dimensional phase, gradually stilled. Its 6 eyes, previously darting around seeking escape or targets, focused entirely on Dr. Thornton. "What is she doing?" one of the Draxian officers hissed. Captain Chen, who had observed this process before, explained quietly. "She's establishing recognition. Not as prey, not as handler, but as a sentient being acknowledging another sentient being." For 20 minutes, Dr. Thornton simply talked to the Void Stalker, occasionally instructing Shadow to demonstrate non-threatening behaviors. The Black Panther, displaying remarkable training, performed exactly as instructed, showing the Void Stalker through example that peaceful interaction was possible. Finally, Dr. Thornton made her most daring request yet. "I'd like the containment field lowered." "Absolutely not," Krez snarled. "It would kill you instantly." "Only because that's what you've trained it to do," Dr. Thornton countered calmly. You've never given it any other option for interaction. The standoff might have continued indefinitely, if not for an unexpected development. The Void Stalker, which had been intently watching Dr. Thornton in shadow, suddenly phased partially through the containment field, something the Draxians had believed impossible. Instead of attacking, however, it simply extended one six-digited paw toward Shadow, mimicking the Earth Panther's earlier peaceful gesture. The Draxian handler nearly activated the neural whip in panic, but Dr. Thornton's sharp command stopped him. Don't. You'll undo everything we've just established. For several tense moments, the Void Stalker remained half-phased through the supposedly impenetrable barrier, its paw extended toward Shadow. Then, with deliberate slowness, Shadow approached and touched her nose to the extended paw. The silence in the shuttle bay was absolute. The Draxians had never seen a Void Stalker interact with another creature without violence. The implications were staggering. "This is the difference," Dr. Thornton said quietly into the silence. "Your approach creates weapons. Ours creates bonds." The demonstration continued as Dr. Thornton introduced Bristle, the Vortian spine devil, allowing the two formerly untamable species to interact under her careful guidance. By the end of 2 hours, the Void Stalker was lying peacefully in its containment field, no longer attempting to phase through it, watching the proceedings with evident curiosity rather than predatory intent. Warlord Krez, observing silently throughout most of the demonstration, finally approached Dr. Thornton directly. "You have demonstrated a technique we had not believed possible," he acknowledged. "But this only confirms that humans possess a biological manipulation ability that could threaten Draxian military supremacy." Dr. Thornton shook her head. "You're still missing the point, Warlord. This isn't a technique that can be weaponized. It requires empathy, patience, and genuine respect for the other being. Qualities not typically associated with military applications," Captain Chen added diplomatically. "Then explain your purpose," Krez demanded. "Why develop these relationships if not for tactical advantage?" The question seemed to genuinely surprise Dr. Thornton. "For the relationship itself," she replied simply. "For the joy of connection with another living being. For the privilege of understanding a different form of consciousness." The Draxian concepts nearest to joy and privilege in this context were so rarely used that the translator struggled momentarily. When comprehension finally dawned, Warlord Krez's expression shifted to something the humans couldn't quite interpret. "You befriend predators for emotional satisfaction, among other things," Dr. Thornton acknowledged. "Research benefits, ecological insights, companionship. Earth's history is full of partnerships between humans and other species that benefited both parties." Ambassador Zillith, who had been observing carefully, recognized what might be a crucial diplomatic opening. "Warlord Krez, perhaps we might discuss a knowledge exchange program. The humans could share their interspecies communication techniques, while the Draxians could offer insights into your own biological research." The tense standoff that had threatened to erupt into violence began its slow transformation into diplomatic negotiation. While Draxian suspicion didn't evaporate entirely, the immediate threat to the human colony was suspended pending further cultural exchange. As they prepared to return to the Alliance vessel, Warlord Krez approached Dr. Thornton one final time. "Your shadow," he said, gesturing to the Panther who had remained perfectly behaved throughout the tense encounter. "She would fight for you if necessary." Dr. Thornton considered the question carefully. "Shadow would protect me if she perceived a threat, yes. But that's not why we're together. Our relationship isn't based on what she can do for me or what I can do for her. It's based on mutual respect and affection." The Draxian's expression suggested this concept remained somewhat alien to him, but he nodded slowly. "I request permission to observe more of these interspecies interactions. For research purposes." Dr. Thornton smiled. "I would be delighted to demonstrate further, perhaps starting with improved conditions for your Void Stalkers." As they departed the Draxian vessel, Captain Chen shook his head in amazement. You just averted an interstellar war by introducing predator species to each other. I'm not sure that's covered in any diplomatic handbook." Dr. Thornton laughed softly, her hand resting on Shadow's head. "Sometimes the best way to show someone they've misunderstood you is to show them who you really are. The Draxians understand the language of predators. I just showed them a dialect they hadn't considered." News of the Proxima incident spread rapidly throughout the Alliance. For many species, it was their first glimpse of humanity's unique approach to interspecies relations. Rather than conquering through force or technological superiority, humans had demonstrated an entirely different paradigm: partnership across biological divides. In the weeks that followed, the Alliance Council found itself flooded with requests from member species asking for human consultants to assist with problematic wildlife on their worlds. What had been seen as a potential threat was rapidly being reconceptualized as a valuable skill set. Dr. Thornton soon found herself at the center of a new diplomatic initiative, the Interspecies Harmony Program. With a team of human zoologists, xenobiologists, and animal behaviorists, she began the process of sharing Earth's long history of human-animal bonds with the wider galaxy. But as her reputation grew, so too did the attention from less savory elements. Not everyone viewed humanity's talent for befriending apex predators as a force for peace. On a distant world at the edge of Alliance space, a shadowy group of genetic engineers watched recordings of Dr. Thornton's demonstrations with calculating interest. If humans could form bonds with natural predators, what might they accomplish with creatures specifically engineered for war? Either as allies or as enemies, humanity had just become the most intriguing species in the galaxy. As Dr. Thornton's shuttle returned to the Alliance space station, she was unaware of the far-reaching consequences her demonstration had triggered. Cradling the sleeping Shadow in her lap while Bristle dozed in his specialized containment unit, she simply felt relief that potential conflict had been averted. "You've changed the course of interspecies relations in a single day," Ambassador Zillith remarked, his four eyes blinking in what Dr. Thornton had come to recognize as an expression of amazement. "The Alliance has been trying to establish peaceful dialogue with the Draxians for decades." Captain Chen nodded. "Though I'm still not entirely comfortable with how quickly Warlord Krez shifted from exterminate all humans to teach us your ways." "He's a pragmatist," Dr. Thornton replied, gently stroking Shadow's fur. "The Draxians value biological efficiency above all else. When he saw that cooperation yields better results than control, he adjusted his perspective." What none of them realized was that the Draxian interest was far from purely scientific. Back on the command carrier, Warlord Krez was already consulting with his biological warfare division about the implications of Dr. Thornton's demonstrations. If predators can be bonded with rather than merely controlled, he mused to his chief scientist, consider the military applications. Our void stalkers operating willingly alongside handlers rather than through coercion, their effectiveness could increase exponentially. The chief scientist, a female Draxian with unusual silver scaling, considered this thoughtfully. "The human approach appears fundamentally incompatible with weaponization, Warlord. Their bond relies on mutual respect and emotional connection." "Then we will learn this bond," Krez decided, "and adapt it to our purposes." The Alliance Council, meanwhile, was engaged in heated debate over the implications of humanity's unique abilities. What had begun as suspicion was evolving into something more complex, a recognition that humans might represent an entirely new paradigm in galactic relations. "We have overlooked something fundamental," High Counselor Vex Nor addressed the emergency session. "Humans come from what we classified as a death world, not because they conquered it through superior technology, but because they formed alliances with its inhabitants." "Are you suggesting we reclassify Earth?" one representative asked. "I am suggesting," Vex Nor replied, crystalline form pulsing with intensity, "that we reconsider our entire understanding of ecological development. Perhaps the human approach represents an evolutionary path we never anticipated, one where apex species form partnerships rather than merely competing." The implications were staggering. For thousands of years, the Alliance had based its understanding of sentient development on the premise that technological advancement was the primary marker of civilization. Species conquered their environments, then reached for the stars. Humans, it seemed, had found another way. They had befriended their world rather than subduing it. As the Alliance grappled with these philosophical questions, Dr. Thornton returned to her practical work. The Interspecies Harmony Program quickly expanded beyond diplomatic demonstrations to address real ecological challenges throughout Alliance space. Worlds that had struggled with dangerous native fauna suddenly found humans offering alternative solutions to extermination or containment. On Nexus VI, a mining colony plagued by subterranean predators learned to use those same creatures to locate valuable mineral deposits. On the agricultural world of Pterodon, farmers who had been fighting crop-destroying insects for generations discovered that certain local predators could be trained to protect fields more effectively than chemical deterrents. Its simple ecological balance, Dr. Thornton explained to a group of skeptical Alliance xenobiologists. On Earth, we learned thousands of years ago that working with natural systems yields better results than fighting against them. But not everyone was convinced that humanity's approach was benevolent. The Collective Security Council, a subset of Alliance military leadership, continued to monitor the Interspecies Harmony Program with growing concern. The humans are establishing influence across 17 systems through these harmony initiatives, reported Security Chief Drecker during a classified briefing. While their stated intentions appear peaceful, the strategic result is the same: human oversight of critical ecological systems throughout Alliance space. Ambassador Zillith, now a cautious advocate for human integration, offered a counterpoint. Yet in every case, they're solving problems that have resisted our traditional approaches for centuries. The agricultural output on Pterodon has increased by 40% since the implementation of their Predator Partnership Program, which makes those worlds increasingly dependent on human expertise. Drecker rumbled ominously. The debate might have continued indefinitely if not for an unexpected crisis that forced both sides to reconsider their positions. 6 months after the Proxima incident, an automated distress signal reached Alliance headquarters from a remote research outpost on Bellerophon, a planet in the Outer Rim territories. The message was fragmentary but clear enough to send chills through the command center. Containment failure. Specimens escaped. Cannot control. Request immediate evacuation. Bellerophon Research Station was classified Level Black, an installation so secret that even most of the Alliance Council had no knowledge of its existence or purpose. Only High Counselor Vex Nor and Security Chief Drecker recognized the implications immediately. Krez, Drecker growled, his reptilian features contorting in rage. The Draxians must have implemented their version of the human bonding techniques. Without understanding the fundamental principles, Vex Nor added grimly, "Send an emergency containment team immediately." Captain Chen, who happened to be on station delivering a report on Human Alliance cooperative initiatives, caught wind of the situation through his security clearance. His first action was to contact Dr. Thornton. "Something's happened at a classified research facility," he informed her via secure channel. "I don't have details, but the keywords in the alert match your specialty: predator containment failure." Dr. Thornton didn't hesitate. "I'll assemble my team. Shadow and Bristle are coming too. They're better at sensing other predators than any technology we have." The Alliance's initial instinct was to refuse civilian involvement in a classified security operation. But as initial reconnaissance drones sent to Bellerophon went dark one after another, even Security Chief Drecker had to admit they needed specialized expertise. The situation appears to involve genetically modified predator species, Vex Nord explained in the emergency briefing. "Based on preliminary data, we believe the Draxians attempted to recreate Dr. Thornton's bonding techniques with enhancements." "What kind of enhancements?" Dr. Thornton asked, already suspecting the answer. Drecker's expression was grim. "Military applications. They were attempting to create bonded predator units that would respond to Draxian handlers with the same loyalty your creatures show to you, but with combat capabilities. And it backfired, Captain Chen concluded. Catastrophically, Vex Noor confirmed. The modified creatures appear to have developed intelligence beyond their design parameters, rejected their handlers, and taken control of the facility. Dr. Thornton closed her eyes briefly, absorbing this information. "You can't shortcut trust," she said finally. "The bond I have with Shadow took years to develop. It's built on genuine relationship, not genetic manipulation." The rescue mission assembled quickly, a combination of Alliance military forces and Dr. Thornton's specialized team. As their ship approached Velarofen, scanners revealed the extent of the situation. The research facility's outer perimeter had been breached, and unknown biological signatures were spreading across the surrounding landscape. "Whatever escaped is adapting to the local environment," one of the science officers reported, studying the readings with concern. "These energy signatures suggest accelerated evolution." When they landed at a safe distance from the facility, Dr. Thornton insisted on leading the initial reconnaissance with Shadow and Bristle. The Alliance security team, while reluctant, had to acknowledge that her companions provided sensory capabilities their technology couldn't match. What they discovered exceeded their worst expectations. The Draxians had combined genetic material from Void Stalkers with several other apex predator species, including DNA extracted from Shadow and Bristle during their visit to the Draxian command carrier. The result was a new hybrid species the researchers had dubbed Nexus Predators, creatures with the Void Stalker's dimensional phasing abilities, the Spine Devil's natural armor, and the intelligence and adaptability of Earth's big cats. Most concerning of all, they appeared to be communicating with each other, coordinating their movements in ways that suggested not just animal intelligence, but something approaching sentience. "This is why you can't force the bond," Dr. Thornton explained as they observed the creatures from a concealed position. "These beings aren't just weapons. They're people. Different from us, yes, but people nonetheless." The Draxians tried to create obedient soldiers, and instead created a new intelligent species. Captain Chen frowned. "A new species that seems intent on expanding its territory." "Because they were treated as weapons, not as partners," Dr. Thornton replied. "Their only experience with other sentient species has been as subjects of experimentation and control." What followed would later be described in Alliance records as either the most foolhardy or the most visionary moment in interspecies relations. Against direct orders, ignoring the frantic objections of the security team, Dr. Thornton walked out into the open, with Shadow and Bristle flanking her, and deliberately made herself visible to the Nexus predators. "What are you doing?" Captain Chen hissed through the communication link. "Establishing first contact," Dr. Thornton replied calmly. "On their terms, not ours." For several tense minutes, nothing happened. Then, gradually, shapes began to materialize from the undergrowth, sleek, powerful forms that seemed to shift in and out of full visibility. The Nexus predators, curious about these strange beings who approach without weapons or fear. Dr. Thornton didn't rush, didn't make demands. She simply sat down on the ground, instructing Shadow and Bristle to do the same, and waited. One by one, the Nexus predators emerged fully, beautiful and terrifying creatures that combine the most lethal aspects of multiple species into something entirely new. The leader of the pack, distinguished by distinctive silver markings, approached with cautious grace. It studied Dr. Thornton with eyes that reflected an intelligence that was unmistakably self-aware. "Hello," Dr. Thornton said softly. "I'm not here to capture you or control you. I'm here to understand you." The creature made no sound, but its posture shifted slightly, tension easing from its powerful frame. What transpired over the next several hours defied all Alliance protocols for handling dangerous life forms. Dr. Thornton, drawing on decades of experience with Earth's predators and her more recent work with extraterrestrial species, began the slow process of establishing mutual recognition between two intelligent species meeting for the first time. Shadow and Bristle played crucial roles, demonstrating through their behaviors that peaceful interaction was possible, that trust could exist between different species. The Nexus predators, never having witnessed such relationships, observed with evident fascination. By nightfall, Dr. Thornton was sitting in a clearing surrounded by creatures that the Alliance had been prepared to eradicate, engaged in rudimentary but unmistakable communication. Through a combination of vocalizations, body language, and the translation assistance of Shadow and Bristle, she had established the foundation of understanding. When she finally returned to the Alliance perimeter, Captain Chen was waiting with equal parts relief and amazement. "They didn't attack you," he stated the obvious, still processing what he had witnessed. "Of course not," Dr. Thornton replied. "They're intelligent beings who have been mistreated. They recognize that I was offering something different, respect." The implications of her discovery rippled through Alliance command structures with the force of a supernova. The Draxians had inadvertently created a new sentient species, one that combined the deadliest natural capabilities in known space with emerging self-awareness. "This changes everything," High Counselor Vex Nor acknowledged during the emergency session that followed. "If Dr. Thornton is correct, we're not dealing with an ecological containment issue, but a first contact scenario with a new intelligent species." The debate that followed was among the most contentious in Alliance history. Some representatives argued for immediate containment or eradication, citing the potential danger. Others, influenced by humanity's perspective, advocated for recognition and protection. In the end, it was Dr. Thornton herself who proposed the solution that would ultimately reshape galactic understanding of interspecies relations. The Nexus deserved the chance to determine their own destiny, just as any sentient species does. "I propose we establish a protected territory on Bellerophon, with human mediators helping them transition to full autonomy. Against all odds, against centuries of Alliance protocol regarding artificial life forms, against the strenuous objections of the Draxian collective, the proposal was adopted. The Bellerophon sanctuary became the first protected domain for a non-naturally evolved sentient species, and humanity, once feared for its strange affinity with dangerous creatures, found itself in an unexpected new role. Guardians of the galaxy's predators, mediators between worlds that had never before found common ground. As Dr. Thornton told a gathering of Alliance representatives 6 months after the Bellerophon incident, "We didn't survive Earth by conquering its predators. We survived by understanding them, respecting them, and ultimately, by becoming family to them. Perhaps that's the gift we bring to the stars, not technology or military might, but the simple recognition that different doesn't mean enemy. Sometimes, different just means friend you haven't properly met yet." The Guardian species. 5 years after the Bellerophon incident, the Galactic Alliance Council convened for a historic session. The Great Chamber, designed to accommodate representatives from over 200 member species, had been modified for this unprecedented occasion. Specialized environmental sections had been added to allow attendance by beings who would normally never share the same atmosphere. In the central speaking area stood Dr. Eliza Thornton, now serving as Earth's ambassador for interspecies relations. At her side was Shadow, the Black Panther who had become something of a celebrity throughout Alliance space. Behind them stood Captain Marcus Chen, recently promoted to Admiral following his successful integration of human protective strategies into Alliance defense protocols. But what drew the most attention and caused the most murmuring among the assembled delegates were the other attendees flanking the human representatives. Bristle, the Vortian spine devil, had grown to magnificent proportions and now wore ceremonial markers designating him as an official diplomatic liaison. Next to him stood Silver, the Nexus predator who had emerged as the leader of the Bellerophon sanctuary. Most shocking of all to traditional Alliance sensibilities was the presence of a Draxian void stalker, freely walking without restraint or neural control. The creature, which Dr. Thornton had named Nova, moved with liquid grace and unmistakable intelligence. Its 6 eyes surveyed the chamber not with predatory assessment, but with evident curiosity. High Counselor Vex Nor's crystalline form pulsed with formal colors as he opened the session. Representatives of the Alliance, honored guests, and new friends, we gather today to formalize a paradigm shift in our understanding of galactic cooperation. The chamber fell silent as Vex Nor continued. 5 years ago, we viewed humans with suspicion because of their unusual relationship with predator species. Today, we recognize that relationship as perhaps the most important evolutionary development in recent galactic history. A murmur of agreement rippled through the assembly. Even the most skeptical members had been forced to acknowledge the transformative impact of humanity's approach to interspecies relations. Ambassador Thornton. Vex Nur addressed her directly. Please present the formal proposal for the Guardian Initiative. Dr. Thornton stepped forward, her hand resting briefly on Shadow's head, a gesture that had become familiar throughout the Alliance as a symbol of human-predator partnership. Esteemed representatives, she began, the proposal before you today represents not just a new program, but a new understanding of ecological balance. For too long, the galaxy has viewed apex predators as threats to be contained or eliminated. We propose instead to recognize them as essential partners in maintaining healthy ecosystems, both planetary and galactic. The holographic display activated, showing footage from a dozen worlds where human-led initiatives had transformed previously dangerous environments into balanced, thriving ecosystems. On Nexus VII, the once feared subterranean predators now worked alongside mining operations, using their natural abilities to detect dangerous gas pockets before they could threaten workers. On Pterodon, agricultural yields had reached historic highs thanks to the integration of native predators into crop management systems. The Guardian Initiative, Dr. Thornton continued, formalizes what we have been developing through individual projects, a galaxy-wide recognition that predator species are not our enemies, but our natural allies in maintaining balance. The proposal outlined a comprehensive program. Protected status for apex predator species throughout Alliance space, training programs to help other sentient species develop appropriate relationships with their world's predators, and the establishment of interspecies mediation teams, composed of humans and various predator partners, to address ecological crises throughout the galaxy. Most controversially, it included formal recognition of the Nexus as a sovereign sentient species and the expansion of the Bellerophon Sanctuary into a full member territory of the Alliance. When Dr. Thornton concluded her presentation, the chamber remained silent for several moments. Then, in a break with traditional protocol, Silver, the Nexus Predator, stepped forward. The universal translators activated as Silver produced a series of vocalizations and subtle posture shifts that Dr. Thornton's team had spent years helping translate into communicable language. We who were created as weapons, Silver's translated voice resonated through the chamber, now seek to become guardians. We understand better than most the cost of viewing life as merely a tool for power. The human showed us another path, one of mutual respect and cooperation. We ask for the opportunity to walk that path alongside you. It was the first time a genetically engineered species had addressed the Alliance Council. The historic significance was lost on no one present. The deliberations that followed were intense but remarkably united in purpose. Despite centuries of ingrained fear regarding apex predators, the evidence of successful integration was too substantial to dismiss. World after world reported improved ecological outcomes, reduced conflicts, and perhaps most significantly, new scientific and cultural developments emerging from these unprecedented partnerships. Ambassador Zillith, once among the most vocal critics of human-predator relations, now spoke passionately in favor of the initiative. I admit I once viewed humans as dangerously naive, he acknowledged, his membrane flushing with the Sherian equivalent of emotional emphasis. I now recognize that we were the naive ones, assuming that dominance and control were the only possible relationships between species with different capabilities. The vote, when it came, was nearly unanimous. The Guardian Initiative would become the cornerstone of a new approach to galactic ecology. Humanity, in an ironic twist that was not lost on the Earth representatives, would serve as the primary facilitators, teaching other species how to form appropriate bonds with the very creatures humans had once been feared for befriending. As the formal session concluded, Admiral Chen leaned close to Dr. Thornton. "Did you ever imagine, when you first brought Shadow to that diplomatic meeting, that it would lead to this?" Dr. Thornton smiled, watching as delegates from a dozen worlds cautiously approached Silver and the other Predator representatives, initiating their first direct communications. "I hoped for understanding," she admitted, "but this exceeds even my optimistic expectations." The implementation of the Guardian Initiative proceeded more smoothly than anyone had anticipated. Worlds that had struggled for centuries with dangerous fauna discovered the benefits of partnership rather than eradication. Predator species, given respect rather than fear, revealed intelligence and adaptability that had gone unrecognized under traditional containment protocols. Even the Draxians, initially the most resistant to this new paradigm, gradually began to reform their relationship with the Void Stalkers. Under the guidance of human trainers, and with the example of Nova, the first Void Stalker to achieve recognized sentient status, the Draxian military began to transform their biological weapons program into a cooperative security force based on mutual respect. Warlord Krez, meeting with Dr. Thornton during a review of this transformation, made an observation that captured the essence of the change. "We sought to create the perfect weapons and failed. You sought to create perfect friends and succeeded. There is a lesson in this that extends beyond military application." But the true test of the Guardian Initiative came 3 years into its implementation, when the Alliance encountered something unprecedented, a cosmic-level threat that defied conventional response. The first indications appeared as anomalous readings near the galactic core, strange energy patterns that didn't match any known phenomenon. Research vessels dispatched to investigate failed to return. Automated probes sent afterward transmitted bizarre, fragmented data before going silent. The Alliance Council convened an emergency session as the threat assessment team presented their findings. "We believe we're dealing with a composite entity," the chief scientist explained, her voice strained with the effort of describing something beyond standard classification. "Preliminary data suggests a massive colonial organism composed of both organic and energy components. It appears to consume both matter and energy from the systems it encounters." "A predator," Dr. Thornton said quietly. "A galactic-scale apex predator." The scientist nodded reluctantly. "That's one way to conceptualize it. Whatever it is, it's moving outward from the core, and the devastation in its wake is absolute. 3 star systems have already gone dark." High Counselor Vex Nor, his crystalline form gleaming in Earth's sunlight, stepped forward to present the formal declaration. "By unanimous vote of the Alliance Council, humanity is hereby recognized as the official guardian species of the galaxy. In this role, they will continue to serve as mediators between different forms of life, teaching the principles of partnership that have transformed our understanding of ecological balance." As the declaration was formally entered into Alliance records, a Cherian historian leaned toward her colleague. "Who would have imagined," she whispered, "that the Deathworlders would become the peacekeepers of the galaxy?" "It makes perfect sense in retrospect," her colleague replied. "Who better to teach harmony than those who evolved alongside the most dangerous creatures? Humans didn't survive their world by eliminating threats. They survived by transforming them into family." In the years that followed, the Guardian Initiative expanded beyond even its founder's ambitious vision. Hundreds of worlds that had struggled with dangerous fauna discovered the benefits of partnership rather than eradication. The Nexus established their own world and joined the Alliance as full members, their unique abilities proving invaluable in countless ecological and diplomatic missions. Even the Confluence, once feared as a cosmic-level threat, became an ally in its own way, helping Alliance scientists understand cosmic-scale ecological processes and protecting inhabited systems from certain astronomical hazards. Dr. Thornton, reflecting on this transformation during the 10th anniversary of the Guardian Initiative, summed it up to a class of new recruits, human and non-human alike, each accompanied by their predator partners. The greatest lesson Earth taught us was that survival doesn't require domination. The true measure of intelligence isn't the ability to destroy threats, but the wisdom to transform them into allies. As she spoke, Shadow dozed peacefully in a patch of sunlight, an elderly Earth predator who had unwittingly sparked a galactic revolution by simply being herself. Beside her, a young Void Stalker watched the proceedings with evident fascination, occasionally exchanging glances with its human partner, one of thousands of such pairs now serving throughout Alliance space. When we first ventured into the stars, Dr. Thornton concluded, we carried with us Earth's greatest gift, the understanding that different doesn't mean enemy, and that even the most dangerous creatures can become the most loyal friends. We didn't tame the galaxy's predators. We simply introduced ourselves properly, and in doing so, transformed fear into family. Outside the Academy windows, Earth's ancient predators, wolves, lions, bears, roamed freely in the sanctuary grounds, alongside specimens from 100 alien worlds. Children of various species played under the watchful eyes of creatures that their ancestors would have fled in terror. And in the night sky above, visible even in daylight, a shimmering pattern of energy marked the presence of the confluence, no longer a threat, but a neighbor engaged in its own form of cosmic conversation with the species it had once unwittingly endangered. Humans, once classified as dangerous Deathworlders, had indeed found their place in the galactic community. Not as conquerors, not as technologists, but as the species that taught the stars how to make friends with their predators. In the official Alliance Encyclopedia, the entry was updated to read, Humans, Terra, Guardian species, notable evolutionary trait, the ability to form symbiotic bonds with apex predators. Diplomatic status. Essential mediators in interspecies relations. Historical significance. Transformed galactic understanding of ecological balance through the Guardian Initiative. Homeworld. Earth, reclassified from Deathworld to Cradle of Cooperative Evolution. And in a personal note added to her official memoirs, Dr. Eliza Thornton wrote simply, we came to the stars fearing we might find monsters. Instead, we discovered that our greatest gift to the galaxy was teaching it not to fear its monsters, but to understand them. In the end, there were no monsters at all, only misunderstood family waiting to be properly introduced.